What I'd like you to practice is bringing confidence. And bringing confidence while encouraging the client to do even more. And the confidence is, I'm confident that you can do it. I'm confident that you can think of more celebrations. I'm confident that you can create more desires for your future. I'm confident that you can create more action plans. It's the what I was wanting to model yesterday with Rachel, which is, oh, you come up with 10 ideas, I'm confident we can do that. And then I'm confident we can come up with 10 more than that. And I'm confident that you can achieve the life that you want. So what I'm asking you to practice in a few minutes is encouraging the client from a place of confidence, which is a little different than encouraging the client when you have kind of a lack of certainty. It's the difference between, well, what else? What else might you do to accomplish that? Versus, well, can you think of anything else? I bet you can probably think of one more thing anyway, can't you? Come on, come on, come on. So it's that encouragement that is kind of comes from a lack of belief versus an encouragement that comes from a real deep place of knowing that things are going to get worked out. A year ago, I had a real struggle with my wife. We've been married 21 years or 22 years now, and for some reason, about every 7 years, we have a struggle. And then we get along wonderfully. And then things fall apart. And in our 22 years, our relationship has fallen apart 3 times. And looking back, it almost seems silly. Like, how could it have almost fallen apart for that little thing? But it almost did. I'm telling you this story because of how useful Bill's confidence was. Because I was in the middle of this, and I was really hurting. And I would call up Stan, and I would weep. I would just weep. I would be on the floor in a fetal position on the phone weeping. Now, why in the world would somebody do that? Well, it was because I was a little scared but very sad and didn't want to cry alone. And Stan was a long ways away. Now, I also cried in person with some of my friends. But in the course of all that, I would talk to Bill every week or two. And he'd say, oh, how's it going? I'd say, it's terrible. It's just terrible. I'm just sure we're going to get divorced. He says, give me a percentage. I says, oh, man, I'm thinking like 95%. I think it's ending this time, 95%. He'd say, oh, it's interesting. I said, well, wow, what's your percent? He'd say, 10%. 10%? You're crazy. No. He said, well, just my opinion. He says, I think you got about a 10% chance of crashing this thing into the ground. And about 90% chance it's just going to pull out and you're going to fly away and have a great time. And I'd argue with him. And he'd say, well, you want to argue, we can argue, but that's my point of view. So I'd hang up and then I'd call Stan. And Stan would say, no, I think you're right. It's about 90%. This thing's going to die. Now, we could argue that Stan's just making me right, and Bill's bringing confidence. Now, I actually think they were both honestly telling me their point of view. But that confidence really was useful. You know, that's what I want you to attempt to practice here. Now, what if you don't have confidence? Don't fake it, because it's not, I don't think it's polite, because people can see through it. But I want you to practice it. I want to have you ask the client to go further. I know a few of you have done this, but we haven't actually asked you to practice it yet, but I want you to practice it today. So you're moving down the continuum of direction. You're being more and more directive. And you're not directing the client as to what he or she wants or how they're going to get it. You're not giving advice. But you're directing the process. So the content of the coaching is the client's to direct. The process of the coaching is yours to direct. And as you start to press the client to generate more celebrations, you're going to press the client to generate more desires and more action plans or ways to get that. And the press is very soft. You're just kind of gently guiding them. Now, eventually, you can add to them. But for now, we're just going to go down to this practice of confidence while directing the client to come up with more celebrations, more action plans, and more desires.